The Pro Tour media partnership deals have been announced. The Pro Tour has announced that they have signed a multi-year deals with Jomez and Gatekeeper for the men's lead and chase card coverage. It also looks like GK Pro has a single-year deal for the women's lead card coverage, and then Central Coast has lead card at Silver Series events. But the big deal that came out of all of this was Jomez has purchased the rights to the lead card coverage for the next 2 seasons for $500,000, so $250,000 a season for the rights to be able to cover these rounds. So we talked about this previously.
What is it? Silver Series 2?
No,
or
Silver
is
Series
it just...
is Central Coast. So it's just the main Pro Tour events.
And they're doing they added, there's a couple majors on there too.
I don't know if the Pro Tour wouldn't have access to those.
No, the Disc Golf Network does.
Yeah, so I mean maybe Jomez will handle USDGC post-produced, but that will
was
still
on
be
there.
behind
Was it not on there?
In today's post?
Today's post was simply just Disc Golf Pro Tour. That's it?
I can look it up right here. I thought so. We're excited to announce our 2022 post-production media plan. Welcome back. Hit the link in our bio. Let me hit the link in our bio. Because this just says Pro Tour 2-year deal. Because the Pro Tour had announced earlier.
12 events.
The Pro Tour had announced earlier about the Disc Golf Network covering USDGC, Worlds, Champions Cup, all of that.
Are they doing the playoffs as well?
Yeah, it just says for the Disc Golf Pro Tour season.
So we're assuming it's probably playoffs and... Okay, so I'm going to do some numbers here.
Wait. While this constitutes a current season-long partnership, more post-production will provide additional coverage throughout the season. FPO chase card coverage will be added whenever possible and is planned for all PDGA majors. Jomez, groundbreaking. They will provide coverage for 3 PDGA majors, the PDGA Worlds, USWDGC, and Champions Cup.
Okay, so they're doing 36 events. 15 is going to be the 13 elite series, or the 12 elite series, the 2 playoffs, and then the tour championship. So that's 15 the next year, and then that's 30, and then the 6 majors across the 2 years. So that's 36. So you do that divided by 36. So just under $14,000 a tournament. Yeah, is what they're paying. Which most tournaments are roughly 3 days. So they're paying right around $4,600 or so a day.
And that's 2 videos each day.
Mm-hmm. That's to cover lead card.
I did some math on just like rough numbers.
Can we talk about the first and the most ridiculous thing that you told me? Can I bring that up, or do you want to bring it up?
I don't know, so bring it up.
That you were saying that you saw in some comments.
Oh, yeah.
That people thought that the Disc Golf Pro Tour was paying Jomez. Yeah. And instead of being like, what the heck is going on? People are like, yeah, finally, the Disc Golf Pro Tour paying Jomez what they deserve.
Yeah, it was also, it was the way.
What are you thinking?
So Ultiworld posted it says Jomez is back covering lead card for MPO for the next 2 years after agreeing to a $500,000 rights fee in a milestone media contract. Nothing they said in that was wrong, but they were the first ones to like put the number into the post that was on social media, because the Pro Tour's post didn't have, you had to go looking for it. And so people were like responding to it and also sharing it. And now people are like starting to understand it, but the initial things were like not enough, but it's a good start. And like I saw someone share it and they're like, great to see, like good to see for Jomez, this is really big for them, which it is, but you could tell by the way people were wording it and some of their responses that people initially were like, oh, sick, the Pro Tour's paying Jomez what they deserve, versus like the Pro Tour owns the rights to this and Jomez is paying it. From the rough math I did, this shouldn't be like Jomez is getting, I don't want to call it a steal, but Jomez should have no problem making the money back on YouTube AdSense alone.
Well, I mean, they've already made that money in Patreon, right? So like I didn't
even look at Patreon.
You don't even have to look. So like this is what I think is a good move for both, right? Because one, they are the only company right now on the media side that is interested in paying that kind of money for coverage.
Well, maybe because I would assume Gatekeeper, they also are Gatekeeper and Jomez are the only two that are under a 2-year deal in the announcement. So,
but Gatekeeper didn't have the money. I don't know if there was a bidding war between the two.
That's what I'm saying. It's weird to me. There's a few things that I don't know. I'm assuming I can't say that I was looking at behind the scenes that were confusing, and it kind of makes sense a little bit now that make me feel as though this wasn't decided until very recently.
Don't tell me anything because I hate knowing stuff that I can't talk about.
I will. It's nothing. It's nothing big. It's nothing big. It's just something I saw weeks ago, and I was like, "That's kind of weird." And then now looking back on it, I'm like, "Oh, this would make sense if this wasn't already set in stone. Like if this was something that was an ongoing negotiation." But I do think that Gatekeeper must have paid for chase card coverage. Maybe they were like, "Don't put that number out publicly" or whatever. But it's hard to imagine a world where Gatekeeper or whoever doesn't want the lead card coverage. And so at some point, there's going to be a bidding war if that's not what already happened. It might have been like, hey, this is what, Jomez, what are you willing to pay for this? And Jomez comes back with X amount. And then they're like, all right, Gatekeeper, just to let you know, like, if you want to top this, you can. And maybe Gatekeeper was like, yeah, we can definitely do it. We can top it. And they came back and it went back and forth until eventually Gatekeeper's like, that's too big of a risk. But Jomez is like, hey, we know our fans have us. We know they're going to back us. It is what it is. My
point meaning like Jomez is the only one that is willing to, I mean, obviously Gatekeeper, if they really wanted it, they could have probably paid $700,000. Now, would Jomez go over top of that as well? Who knows? Yeah. My point was just there's no one else outside of maybe those two that it's not like they're bidding against ESPN or ABC or CBS or ESPN Plus. They're not bidding against really any media company outside of disc golf. So I think this is a good thing for both because obviously we were talking about this a while ago where I still think down the road that it'll be interesting to see if the Disc Golf Pro Tour and maybe they're in the world of where they're just like, hey, we just really want to focus on live and trying to bring on post-produce and do all this is just too much for us. And it's easier for us right now to sell that for $500,000 and not have to worry about it and know Jomez is going to do a great job than trying to do that in-house. And yeah, we might be able to make $750,000 or $1 million or whatever, but maybe it's just easier for them to just focus on live and try to do live as best as possible and let these other people do post. Yeah. I'm wondering if that's what it is because I still think they would be more successful financially and on social media as well as if everything was on their site, on their channel, all that stuff, and everything drove traffic to them. But this has got to be something of where they just feel like it's too much work to get started and get going when there's already people out there doing it really well. But it's going to get really interesting is what happens a couple years from now.
Yeah, as I was going to say, 2023, that price
does come in.
Well, also 2023, that price is not going to be $500,000 anymore for 2 years. That's gonna go up because as disc golf's popularity goes up, which UDisc just put out an article, it's not like pumping the brakes anytime soon as of right now according to statistics. So
no, the COVID drop off thing was that whenever people were talking about that's not a realistic thing. Most people that are getting into disc golf also are not because of COVID. Like COVID definitely had an impact and definitely brought in a lot of new people as well. But there was also a lot of people getting into disc golf before COVID.
Yeah.
And also Ultimate Frisbee. A lot of people play Ultimate Frisbee. And now that easy transition from Frisbee over to disc golf, it wasn't because of COVID for a lot of these people. It's simply just because they're finding out about this sport that they didn't know about. And all of a sudden, like, wow, they're loving it. So
I think
it's going to be It's going to be really, really good for the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
Yeah, I think the COVID drop-off, what it technically was, is I think it was something that was felt more so like on a retailer manufacturer side, because I think what happened was you had the boom.
That's more stimulus checks, though.
Exactly. I think it was a perfect storm, because you had a lack of stock, a lack of inventory, stimulus checks. You had an influx of money into people's pockets who just learned about the sport, or people who already knew. And so if I'm a fan, I'm looking at a website and I see them get Onyxes in. I don't know when the next time I'm going to see an Onyx is. So now I might buy 2 or 3 times more of what I would normally buy, because I have stimulus money and I don't know when the Onyx is going to be back in stock. So I think it might have like had this false sense of growth sales-wise that didn't match the actual growth of disc golf. So it made disc golf like sales numbers look bigger than they were. So then when those drop back down to meet reality, which is still much bigger than it was pre-pandemic and is still going up, it made it feel like there's this big, people must have like dropped off, went back to work, whatever, stopped doing it, or stopped playing. When I think what actually happened was like people just started buying plastic at a normal rate again, because, the products started to get closer to meeting demand in today's market. But back to the Pro Tour Jomez thing, personally, I think this is the by far the smartest move the Pro Tour could have made for a number of reasons. I think the Pro Tour is probably crunching the numbers and realized the fact that like to be able to profit $500,000 off of post-production in the first year, when you have to like front all the money for possibly additional equipment, more staff, set up the logistics of editors, getting it turned around next day.
Do we know the payment?
Do we know
the
what?
Do you know the payment? We don't know the payment method, though.
What do you mean?
Oh, I was saying we don't know, like, I'm assuming that it's not $500,000 up front.
No. $250,000 per year, I'd assume, because it's $500,000 for 2 years. So I would guess it's like a monthly thing or something.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, do you think Jomez just wrote the Disc Golf Pro Tour $250 and now they're sitting with $250 in their bank account?
No, I would bet it's over months, but I bet the Pro Tour, it's obviously a contract, so the Pro Tour knows like they have that money coming in. It's now a new influx. But like that's probably something that it took a lot off of the Pro Tour's plate, where they don't have to apply staff, they don't have to hire more editors, they don't have to buy new cameras, they don't have to worry about more commentators and X, Y, and Z. A lot of like just logistical stuff behind the scenes that they don't have to worry about if they wanted to bring it in. And probably the biggest thing monetarily beneficial to the Pro Tour is they don't cut off Jomez, because that had to be the thing that like, if I'm the Pro Tour and I'm sitting back thinking about all these options, that's what I'm most scared of, is cutting off Jomez, because Jomez is currently, and who knows when it won't be anymore, but they're the biggest, realistically, like the biggest brand social-wise in disc golf. Like if you are in disc golf enough to follow people on social media, you're going to be following Jomez most likely, or at least have watched their videos. And so they have this die-hard loyal fan base that the Pro Tour has went through this once in 2016, where cutting it off, you might even have players boycotting you, and that happened. You had Nate Sexton, who in 2016 was like one of the top players. He's still a top name, but he was one of the top players, boycotting the Pro Tour because the Pro Tour cut off Jomez and was like, hey, we're bringing it all in-house. As the sport's gotten bigger, so has Jomez, so has Jomez's fan base, so has the players' careers that are now tied to Jomez. So you cut them off as the Pro Tour. That's a terrifying move. You have no idea the repercussions. Yeah, it could all be, cupcakes and butterflies and it's all fine, but it also could be like you're risking who knows how much lost revenue, because there might be people who are paying Disc Golf Network. They're like, oh, what the heck? You're going to cut off Jomez and be power hungry? I'm not subscribing to you anymore then. We're going to take a boycott the Pro Tour. And then someone sweeps in and is like, hey, here's a tour, and Jomez, you're welcome to come in. And next thing you know, you've immediately created a competitor, whereas this way, you secure money over the next 2 years, you secure great coverage for post-production, because Jomez is the best at what they do, and you secure that the fan base of Jomez, one of the biggest, most powerful fan bases in disc golf, is still happy with you. I mean, those three things, it's a win-win-win for the Pro Tour, and for Jomez, this is job security for 2 years at least. Because now they don't have to have that in the back of their mind of like, hey, we're filming tournaments that someone else owns. So now, and Jonathan Gomez in the article even said this, like, who knows what Jomez is going to be capable of doing now that they know, hey, we can really invest in these next 2 years. We have 2 years of guaranteed growth. We can really invest in the company and grow it, because we don't have to worry about growing this other stuff, because coverage, our core thing, is locked in for 2 years. So, I mean, it's hard. Every year, it's hard to imagine how Jomez's coverage can get better. But every year, they've proven different ways to do it. So now that they have even more focus and more passion for 2 years with it locked in, there's no telling what that could mean for disc golf coverage and what that could mean overall for the growth of the sport. So to me, it was a great win for both sides because I think Jomez got it at a price where they're easily going to be able to make that money back and then some. And the Pro Tour got it at a price where it made sense on their bottom line and revenue, to where it wasn't like, we should have just invested in all the back end stuff to do it ourselves. It's enough to like keep them happy to where it's worth it for them to give up all that potential money and to someone who's going to keep their fan base happy.
So here's an interesting thing to think about. So do you think Gatekeeper and we'll throw GK Pro in there as well? Do you think those two? And this is also for our listeners, too. I would love to hear your guys' opinions on this, too. So you can tweet us at Debate Night Pod on Twitter as well. Do you think JomezPro's product is exponentially better, like drastically better than Gatekeeper and GK Pro?
In some ways. I think some of the things that Jomez is capable of is better, but it's not.
So if you went unbiased opinion though,
yeah,
like if you brought someone in that didn't know anything about disc golf, well, was played disc golf but has never watched disc golf,
yeah.
If you show them a Jomez lead card video and then you show them a Gatekeeper or a GK Pro lead card video, are they going to be able to tell a drastic difference?
Drastic, no. I mean, that's what they enjoyed more is realistically going to come down to the commentary and play more than anything.
Because this is where I think.
But one thing that needs to be said though is a lot of what makes GK Pro and Gatekeeper and a lot of their coverage great has been pulled and imitated and copied, not directly copied,
from
but
Jomez, sure.
From Jomez. And so Jomez,
they're leading the way.
Exactly.
But
and they've innovated new things for disc golf that other media companies then take and apply to their videos that make it to where now, you can watch any of them and you're happy with them all.
So I think I'm trying to think from like my standpoint of watching sports. Because we have to kind of relate Jomez, Gatekeeper, all these to like the ABCs, the CBSs, the NBCs, the TNTs, the ESPNs, right? When a basketball game, I'm just going to use basketball. When a basketball game is on, let's say, NBC versus a basketball game being on TNT, the only reason that I enjoy it being on TNT more. Commentators in basketball, I don't really care too much about. Same with football. I'm not, when it comes to commentating, like some people think Tony Romo is super annoying now. I don't really care too much with the commentators in football. I think they're all pretty decent. Basketball, same thing. But I know when it's TNT, I get the halftime show with Ernie, with Shaq, with Chuck, and Kenny, right? And I get the post game with those people as well. And so I get excited when I'm going to watch a basketball game on TNT because that comes. I think what Jomez has done, which of why you're saying like the Disc Golf Pro Tour is super smart about bringing them on board for 2 years because they're worried about the backlash. I don't, and maybe I'm wrong, don't really see that happening in other sports of where if the NFL came out and said, hey, NBC is going to be covering all of our games and not CBS and Fox. I don't think you're going to have a bunch of people come out and get super upset about games not being on CBS and Fox. Maybe some people that are like big fans of certain commentators, but no one's going to be like, oh my gosh, you guys are screwing CBS. What the heck? There's no one really like fans of CBS. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But Jomez has put a face, has put a personality, and one of the reasons why they have become so successful has done a great job of personalizing their company to where people actually have like emotional attachments to Jomez. And that's why I think you'll see in the comments and stuff some people saying that GK Pro and Gatekeeper are terrible compared to Jomez, where if you actually had an unbiased person sit down and look at, production and just look at who does it better than who, I think it'd be a lot closer than what some people are saying. And that's simply just because some people are fans of Jomez, where I've never heard anyone say that they're a fan of NBC. I don't see people walking around with NBC hats. I don't.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think there's this weird kind of connection with Jomez and doing coverage is.
Well, it's just different though, because NBC, what you just described is like, I am personally a fan of college basketball in the ACC. So I don't care what channel I consume the ACC on. It's all the same to me. I'm going to watch the ACC. The difference in disc golf is the Pro Tour didn't exist until 2016. Or something like that. Yeah, 2016 was the start of the Pro Tour. Pro Tour didn't exist before then. Jomez in 2012, when they started, there wasn't really a ton of ways to watch good quality disc golf. Like you could watch, like there was some live thing like Disc Golf Planet. I wasn't watching disc golf back in 2012, but Smashbox I think was around back then. There was a few different ways, but like post-produced coverage wasn't a super big thing. Early in it, you can find like Marty McFly, and then he did with Prodigy with like no commentary, stuff like that. But Jomez, as the years went on, was your source, especially on like the tour. But like the tour still at that point wasn't like super established as a unified tour. If there was a massive A tier that Paul and Ricky and whoever went to, Jomez was there and covered it. It felt the same as a tour event because there wasn't a tour to be a fan of. You were just a fan of disc golf, and the only way to consume disc golf was through Jomez. That was that. So in that, instead of becoming allegiant to the ACC like I am, or allegiant to the NFL or the NBA, the only thing to attach yourself to, exactly, the only thing to attach yourself to was Jomez, because your only other option was the PGA, but they were just sanctioning stuff. And so, like,
and again, like, I don't have anything against what Jomez is doing or anything like that. I think obviously they have done incredible things. I just think it is a weird. I'm just bringing this up because of the fact that you said, they're worried about the backlash. It is a weird thing for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, because if the Disc Golf Pro Tour wants to continue to build, and if disc golf fans and all that stuff want the sport to continue to grow as far as more people playing, more money to pros, all that, you have to eventually phase out Jomez, Gatekeeper, and GK Pro as far as coverage. You have to, because I mean, I just don't see how that happens in the sport. I don't see how that happens without the big dogs coming into play. And if ESPN comes in and says, we want complete rights to all coverage.
Sure, yeah.
And they're willing to spend $5 million.
Yeah, then
that would drastically help. That would drastically help the Disc Golf Pro Tour grow. The pros make more money and more eyeballs get to see it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like everything. So I just don't see how that happens in the future. And it's just one of those things of where, again, we'll worry about it if it ever does happen, because this is all assuming that disc golf gets popular enough and more eyeballs get seen to where a big media company wants to pay all this media for all the media rights.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll cross that bridge when it gets there. But the question is like, are there going to be people that are upset at the Disc Golf Pro Tour? And are they going to call them sellouts and all this stuff for doing something that is clearly a business move that literally has been done hundreds and thousands of times before? But like you said, it's a weird situation with how Jomez got with disc golf and how a lot of fans have been brought into disc golf that is different. So
yeah,
it's just something to think about.
I mean, if ESPN came in tomorrow and bought all the coverage rights for $5 million and there is no more post-production on YouTube unless it's through ESPN or the Disc Golf Network, like, there's only like going to be highlights posted and you have to watch it on ESPN. Yeah, people would boycott the Pro Tour. Players, I don't think would, because players would understand how many more eyeballs they're reaching. But fans would be outraged 100%. Whether or not that's right or not, it is what it is, because like you said, $5 million a year to the Pro Tour, a very arbitrary number that we definitely just made up 100%. But something like that comes into the Pro Tour, there's no telling what that does for the sport and for the purses and for the exposure and stuff like that. But that's, at the end of the day, people are going to be upset because people are upset. But I think the tipping point to get where like that's not true or it's not a quote unquote big deal is like if it ever, I don't even know how this exactly happens. I think it's starting to happen a little bit, but it's nowhere close. Is like the Pro Tour needs to be the most recognizable name in disc golf versus Jomez when it comes to like things beyond players. Because like right now, like NBA, MLB, all of that, and there's people who know NBA that have no idea who CBS is or TNT. There's people in other countries that know what the NBA is. They don't know TNT or whatever in correlation to the NBA. They couldn't tell you what network what carries. I couldn't tell you if I'm going to watch a game. I have no idea what it's coming on. I just know there's an NBA game on, and then I go find where it's at. Because the NBA, when it comes to basketball, is a bigger name than CBS or Fox or TNT or anything like that. And in disc golf, in order for that backlash to not happen, the Pro Tour would have to get to a point somehow that the Pro Tour is the bigger name in disc golf than Jomez. How that ever happens, I don't know. That's why I think the Pro Tour was geniuses for this move, and I think it benefits all sides and the sport. And I also think it was very smart for them to only do 2 years because it gives enough security to Jomez, but it also gives enough negotiating power with the Pro Tour to not lock them into like 5-6 years and really screw themselves over. And it wouldn't surprise me if in the contract there is some type of clause, like a big media clause, where if someone comes in, the Pro Tour has the right to sell it or something like that.
To buy them out. Yeah. I mean, again, we're nowhere near the numbers that need to be hit for big media companies to have any sort of interest. But who knows? Like if another big jump happens, who knows? The one thing I will finish on saying is I see this and hear this a lot of like how Jomez has basically put disc golf on the map or did all this other stuff, right? Of where like everyone should be thankful for Jomez. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be thankful. I agree that you should. But also we have to keep in mind too that the players that they were filming, that's what people were tuning in to watch. And they've done a good job now of building up Yuli, Nate Sexton, and Big Germ as to be kind of like synonymous with Jomez, right? When you think of Jomez, you think of those guys as well. So they've done a good job about that. But at the end of the day, like the people that Jomez was filming, and like you said, they would go to tournaments that the best players would go to, right? That's what you said, like when they first were filming?
Yeah.
I just don't want people to forget, like, at the end of the day, like people are tuning in not because it's Jomez, but because of the people that are playing, and people will tune out.
Well, sure, but you also like on the flip side of that coin, if it wasn't for Jomez or like anyone who would have stepped up, then these players would have had no platform. So like,
I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is like it's for both. Like both people need to be thought about, not just one. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Is some people are. Like, the players should be thankful for Jomez. The Jomez should be thankful for the players. And the fans should be thankful for the both. And I think, at the end of the day, this is a great deal for Jomez. This is a great deal for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. This is a great deal for the players. And it's going to continue to push disc golf in the right direction.
Boom. Perfect way to sum it up there.